Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Bitcoin brief. Sorry for the little delay in going live. We were trying to get Leah as well, but unfortunately, she was not able to make it this morning. Therefore, you guys are stuck with the three prettiest people on the show. So you guys are with us, and we are going to go right into the news. Jimmy, Giacomo, I'm sure you guys are doing well. Let's just jump right into it. We are running late. I got to drive to Connecticut for the meetup. So we are going to jump straight into the news. Let me go to screen share. So we begin with Facebook. So Facebook famously decided to dump all cryptocurrency related ads. I know Facebook did the same thing. And but now it looks like Facebook is bringing them back on a selective basis, which I really agree with. So I actually agreed with their original decision as well. I agree with this decision also. When the majority of your ads are outright scams, what you get is an overreaction and a complete ban. This is what China did with ICOs, and this is what Facebook did with the ads. Upon further review, they've realized that, hey, well, Bitcoin itself isn't a scam. A lot of the companies, like their own Square, which is owned by the same CEO, they're not a scam. So, I mean, Square would not be able to advertise their services on Facebook, owned by the same CEO, if this policy had remained.
I think you're thinking of Jack Dorsey. That's Twitter. That's different than Facebook.
Oh, my bad. Sorry, I'm getting them confused. You're right. I'm getting them confused. It's been a long week. Thank you for that, Jimmy. Well, Twitter will also be doing this, right? So Facebook is going to look at them on an independent basis, one by one, and that's a good idea. I'm sure a lot of scams are going to sneak through. I know a lot of people in Ethereum are going to think that, well, our project isn't a scam. But it is. So we'll see which advisors there are in Facebook. Generally, I kind of agree with this. I agree with them being more selective about it. I know a lot of people are going to complain from both sides. People like us on the show are going to complain that scams are being advertised, and scammers are going to complain that they're legit and they should have the right to advertise. But it's better than, a complete no crypto-related ads. Your thoughts, Jimmy? Let's start with you.
Well, I stopped using Facebook like 2 years ago, so I wasn't aware if there were a lot of cryptocurrency ads or whatever. But I imagine that this was a major source of revenue for them, and banning them probably deprived them of a lot of revenue because a lot of these ICOs have a lot of money, and this is how they, this is how EOS probably pump, for example. Banning them in a way like made it a little less scammy and probably retained a lot more of their users, but at the same time, it's hurting their revenue. So, it's one or the other, that sort of thing. I mean, they have a lot of different properties. Who knows how they're treating like ads on Instagram or some of this other stuff. I mean, I don't know if if this bodes well for them. I'm going to guess that Facebook at some point will launch their own currency or have deeper Bitcoin integration. It's either one or the other. Deeper Bitcoin integration would obviously be welcome. Launching their own is probably not going to go that well. They already did Facebook credits a while back, and that didn't go anywhere. So I mean, it's they know how important this space is, and they probably are losing a bunch of employees to a lot of these startups that are in crypto. So who knows where it's gonna go from here? But this is a small part of a much larger issue at Facebook.
Giacomo, go ahead and jump in here, and then I'll comment on Jimmy's statement that Facebook might launch its own currency. I think that would be literally the beginning of the final stages of the bubble, which will reach global proportions.
Interesting theory. So my main point would be to mark a difference between something like the China ban and something like the Facebook ban. So the first case is an actual legal ban. So if you are trying to do or buy or sell ICO, we will come to you and say you that you can't. Otherwise, you have to leave your home and job and country and whatever. In this case, the owner of a platform that is giving you the platform for free without even asking you money is telling you that you have to follow some arbitrary rules because they are sick of your scam advertising. And so it's a completely different, it's like when Roger Ver speaks about censorship on Reddit. This is not a ban in the same sense that China ban was a ban. This is moderation in order to relieve users from some garbage. And I think for me, for example, it was better to use Facebook without a lot of crypto scams because as a Bitcoiner, I was particularly targeted by, I am also on YouTube. I cannot open a YouTube video without some kind of ICO scam advertising because of the target, which is not distinguishing between Bitcoiners and scammers.
You know what? In a way, sorry, Giacomo, in a way, this is great for YouTube's business because when you get bombarded with outright scams, you're almost incentivized to pay for YouTube Red, which is like $10 a month. And then you see no ads at all, which is what I've been doing for like 2 months now. And I forget that Facebook even has ads because it automatically just takes $10 off my credit card.
This is a very, very, very good point. And it was my basic point. So anticipating what you're going to say, if Facebook is going to launch a legal security as tokens, I think that the Telegram story already showed that there was a temptation for incumbents of the telecommunication, for an established startups to try, not as important as Facebook, of course, but the Telegram case was a case in which a startup was very, very tempted to raise money issuing on the open unregulated security because regulators apparently were not intervening. But the fact that they stopped may possibly mean that your scenario of the final stage. But I will leave you to project this scenario.
All right. So this idea that Facebook may launch its own currency, I think that would be absolutely crazy. I think that if Facebook did launch its own money, that would literally open the door for every company in the world to have their own money. And I don't know what good is going to come from this because why do you need to have, like, I'm already pissed off at how many fiat currencies there are as I travel around the world. I have a stack about like this in my house of currencies from like 20 plus different countries, because when I get to a country, because I don't know what hour I'm going to be landing, I could be landing in the middle of the night. I always want to make sure I land in a country that I've been to before with enough cash to pay for a taxi, like just in case they don't have Uber or it's inconvenient. So like, God forbid that every single company has its own currency. I mean, the concept is ridiculous. And I don't think Facebook is going to go that route. But if they do, I would probably be, I would have to go all in on this concept as early as possible because the bubble will blow so high, it will be out of control. Like, then every company is going to do it. Then it's going to be, hey, I actually got the connections to maybe be on the ground floor on a lot of these things. I mean, that's one way to have me become like a shitcoin scammer, is when legit companies like Facebook or YouTube or, well, Google technically, or like Amazon have their own open market currencies that are freely traded. I don't see that at all because they already have their stock. I don't see why they would endanger the entire company and have the government come in and literally shut down Facebook, like the US government, because Facebook decided to compete with the US dollar, which may or may not be legal. I don't know. But I don't see that happening. I can see them utilizing Bitcoin or, some other stupid currency that they think is better. So that would, cause them a bunch of harm in the future. But I cannot see them creating their own ICO. I just can't. All right, guys. Unless any other comments, we can go ahead and move on. Oh wait, I'm still screen sharing. I was like trying to find the S&P 500 because I got some text messages. Forgot that I'm so used to Leah doing this. I totally forgot that I was on screen share.
Yeah, you can't just look pretty, Tone. You got to do some other stuff,
While you guys were talking, I'm like, oh man, I think the market is dropping. All right, now let's move on to the next story. Our next story is Tron. Again, Leah has been keeping an eye on EOS, which is an Ethereum copycat disaster in the making, and Tron is yet another Ethereum copycat, which I guess launched its mainnet. Now, people have to keep in mind that Tron, basically, they combined EOS and Ethereum because they are using Larimer's delegated proof of stake. Now, I still don't understand the difference between delegated proof of stake and proof of stake. The only thing I can think of from a layman's perspective is that delegated proof of stake is insanely more centralized, while proof of stake actually lets everybody profit money out of thin air by holding money. But delegated proof of stake only allows 21 friends of Dan Larimer profit 99% of all the money, and 1% trickles, down the line. That's the only difference that I am aware of between delegated proof of stake and proof of stake. Tron is launching. They're just an Ethereum competitor. I don't really see. It's great that Ethereum is going to have some competition. I want to see Ethereum fall out of the top 10. I want to see. I don't know if Tron and EOS are more incompetent than Ethereum or less. It sounds like EOS is way more incompetent than Ethereum's developers, based on what's already happened. Tron, the jury is still out. I guess it would be nice to see Tron be more competent than Ethereum, just to prove that there is no value proposition in Ethereum, and all of their users and use cases can just hop from one insecure centralized protocol to another, just like we can't decide on what messenger to talk to each other on. So I'm kind of hoping to see that, but in the end, all of this is nonsense. General thoughts, Giacomo, I'll start with you.
I agree with your last statement is very, very important. So you can argue that maybe the two opposites of the spectrum, when you do all hard work and no marketing, like pure open source, serious, conservative, secure work like Bitcoin. And on the other side of the spectrum, you have something more market friendly. So ride the hype, use some marketing, dream, let people dream, make things easy for developers. Don't be concerned too much about security. One could argue that both positions have their trade-offs, and you can just choose in the spectrum in between. But the reality is that one position, the position of seriousness, conservativeness about security first, and slow, difficult change, is a position that converges over one platform. So when you have one platform that is secure, standards, low, tested, then everybody will converge around this platform. When you try the other extreme, even if, assuming you are not a scammer and you are a honest JavaScript programmer that want to experiment smart contracts, if you do something which is by definition done at the last moment, quickly, without thinking about it, then the next, following the hype and searching for the hype, then the next big thing will come very, very quickly to steal to eat your lunch and to replace you as a newer. So if the merit of Bitcoin is to be safe and the original and the strong, this merit can resist in time. If the merit of Ethereum, assuming is not just a giant scam, which it is, but if the merit is for people that feel some sympathy for Ethereum, just to be newer and faster, there will always be something even newer and even faster. Tron in this case Tron literally copy pasted other people's white papers. So this is a great example. Compared to this, like all these post Ethereum things are moving the overtone window. further and further. Like if people like me like to say that Ethereum is a scam, when you are confronted with Tron or with EOS, you are embarrassed because in comparison, Ethereum was kind of legit. So at least they made more effort to mask the scammy parts.
Jimmy, jump in there if you want. Probably not even worth it, but go for it.
Well, I just I wanted to make one comment. You commented that you kind of want Tron to beat Ethereum, but you kind of don't. Yeah, that to me is kind of like choosing between Kang and Kodos for all you Simpsons fans out there. Those are the two big aliens,
Yeah,
like voting for one or the other.
You lost me with that analogy.
Yeah, it's choosing between two evils. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
I don't see that.
I'd say it's choosing between a Chihuahua and a Poodle to be your house guard dog.
Hello.
Oh,
hello. All right.
No, we hear you, Jimmy.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. Yeah, you cut out for a second, but that was it.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say the analogy that I would use is like you're choosing between a Chihuahua and a Poodle to be your house guard dog. I mean, it's just the whole thing makes no sense. All right, let's move on. Oh, and in case people are wondering why, while I was looking for the S&P 500, why Riot blockchain showed up and why some ICO scam named Wax showed up, and that's because last night I did a podcast with Doug Polk and we reviewed some of his holdings, and those things are still on my screen. So before people actually think that I am remotely considering investing in either of these things, let's get them off the screen. There you go. All right, let's get back to the news. Next up, this is actually interesting, right? So Vitalik continues to find enough free time on his hands to argue with fake Satoshi over patent law when it comes to blockchains. There's got to be some irony here, right? Like, like somewhere in there has to be some irony, right? So once again, fake Satoshi and N-Chain, who has recently unblocked me from Twitter, which, by the way, is, you know how we always said, hey, achievement, when we made an achievement, X person has blocked you. It's a greater achievement to then get that X person to unblock you. Because if I block someone, getting me to unblock them, as far as I'm concerned, is impossible. But this summer, I got Ronnie Moas, Emin Gunsayer, and fake Satoshi to unblock me. I still have a couple of more to go, but yes. So apparently he's once again trying to patent something that has existed for a while. I believe he's trying to do the same thing with BLS, the BLS signatures, which was just released. So the first thing I said when I read this story, I don't know if you guys read it, is, well, who cares, right? Like Bitcoin doesn't care what parts of Bitcoin you can get the government to patent, because Bitcoin is going to go on. There is nobody to, like, you can't defend your patent. There's no one to defend your patent against, right? You're not going to be able to defend, you're not going to go after individual nodes that are using it. So all these patents, if they relate to the underbelly of the Bitcoin protocol, are completely irrelevant. However, there was something in Vitalik Buterin's reply that got me thinking a little bit. If he's able to get a government patent on something related to wallet structure, then we may have a potential problem, because while Bitcoin itself is decentralized and you can send Bitcoin from, you know, a core node to a core node, most people use phone wallets and people use wallets in general. And if he is able to patent something stupid and have, you know, the government gun behind him, could something like this be dangerous for a wallet provider? Because a wallet provider is just another company providing you the service of a wallet. We seem to have lost Jimmy's video, and but Giacomo's still with us. So Giacomo, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so this is the, I literally spent some, let's say, minutes to look into the the patent application. It's really the BIP32. It's very as you said, it's ironic what is happening. It's ironic, especially that Vitalik takes a lot of time to counteract Craig Wright and these scams. I'm not sure about why. For example, when somebody attacks Vitalik from the Bitcoin camp, he doesn't really react, but it does like to take on into Wright and his accomplices in this kind of patent trolling. So this is obvious patent trolling. What they are basically patenting is BIP32. The prior art section of the patent it's just pure blabbering that shows that European Patent Office are probably very incompetent, at least in these new fields like cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin and stuff like that. This opens a lot of, this reduces the reading into this kind of patent application actually serves a purpose, which is reducing the amount of preoccupation about the amount of concern about other, the thousands and thousands of new patents that Craig Wright and Chain are filing every day. Because if they are all like this, they are just copy pasting other people's open source work, trying to claim it as their. Fortunately, the enforceability of this stuff, as you said, enforceability of patents in general, even legit patents in the Bitcoin world is very, very difficult, luckily. So even if ASIC Boost was patented, Bitmain implemented a covered form of ASIC Boost anyway. And then people created a new ASIC Boost, a new optimized ASIC Boost, which was opened under defensive patent. So it's patents are not very meaningful in Bitcoin, fortunately. Fake patents by fake Satoshi and his fake company are even less enforceable. So that's a good thing. Nothing to worry about in this specific application.
All right, Jimmy, your thoughts on this and what I mentioned about the potential for him patenting something that he obviously doesn't deserve, and can this have some kind of a bad I guess an enforcement mechanism when it comes to wallet providers?
Yeah, so I used to work at a patent litigation firm, and I learned quite a bit about patents and how they work. Almost everything that they're patenting would fall under something called prior art. If you have something that was released before that that shows your invention, then you can't enforce that patent. That patent is null and void. I think he's just spending lots and lots of money, kind of like throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing seeing if anything sticks. That's more or less the strategy of a lot of patent trolls. Each patent is actually kind of expensive. It's like somewhere around $10,000 to $15,000, at least in the US. I don't know about Europe. But the idea is to get as much out there so that you can go and threaten people with lawsuits and put them in litigation. Most of the time, patent trolls don't actually win. And it's very rare that they actually get an award from a judge. The main weapon that they have is the threat of a lawsuit. And that's what they're going to try to do. Except with an open source project, who the hell do you sue? And what damages can you prove? Because, if you're suing an open source project like Samurai Wallet or something, well, you can try to sue them, but what are the damages? How much are you hoping to get out of them? Because really, they're giving out their software for free. It's not like a commercial place that's actually making money off of your invention. Even if the judge claims
that's a good point. Most wallet providers don't charge you for that service, so it would be
So there's no damages there, so it makes it a very difficult lawsuit to do. I'm thinking eventually he's hoping that he can get some of these patents granted, and then maybe Coinbase becomes really big, and then he can go sue Coinbase and say they're using this tech, or at least use the threat of a lawsuit to get some concession.
It does seem like he has a very like he's looking it does look like his whole life that we're aware of so far has always been setting up for some giant, profit scheme long time in the future. Like his time scale is beyond most people to try and take advantage of something long down the line.
Well, I mean, he's setting up for, he has a lot of money now and he has a lot of investors. He has to justify the return. And it looks like N-Chain is becoming a patent troll. That's more or less their strategy. I find this completely and utterly abhorrent. I think this is completely immoral. I didn't think that my estimation of Craig Wright could get lower, but learning about sort of looking forward to what he wants to do, which is more or less patent trolling for a living, it's even worse. And I can't believe I can actually say that. I didn't think my esteem of him could get lower, but it actually has.
Oh, yeah, no, things can always get worse. Giacomo, final thoughts, or we can move on to the BCash stress test?
No, we can move on. Just this is not an insulated case. We were noticing before that Craig Wright was retweeting just another uncorrelated technical stuff, pretending to have patented that as well. So this will be serial. We will see a lot of other similar situations. We should probably just ignore it.
Yep, sounds like a plan. All right, so the BCash stress test, which we covered briefly yesterday, they're starting to get momentum, and I think a lot of people are going to get behind this. We mentioned it yesterday. I'm already in talks with 2 people involved in this on Twitter. I'm going to try and get a third. I am going to try and do a stream. I don't know if Jimmy will be available over the next week or 2. We'll try to time it for Jimmy. Giacomo, I'll try to time it so that you're awake over in Italy. And let's get some of these guys on here. I want to know exactly what they're doing instead of reading a bunch of articles from all over the place. I want to talk to some of the people involved. It looks like the tests have officially started. However, the test is going to run for 2 months, and it's supposed to, crank up as it goes. So I'm not exactly sure on how this works. Again, I have not had time to read the details. I don't know if I will have time to read the details. This is why I want to bring on a bunch of people that are involved with this, and let's talk it out. So I found this website that was tweeted at me. I guess that the stress test will last until the 1st of September, and the goal is to fork the BCash chain by stressing it with transactions. I think I read the articles. They kind of talk about what they're the BCash stress tests are from everything I've read and the media. This is what they do. They talk more about the reason why and the expected outcome or the goal, but they don't really talk about the details, and the details are generally will be a little more technical for my understanding, but perhaps not for all of our audience. And that's why I want to bring these guys on. If you guys know anything about these details, go ahead and mention those. If not, I will continue to try and bring these guys on our show.
Yeah, by my side, I think the Twitter interaction was very funny because first they attacked you, but then they realized that you were going to be ready to follow honestly the attack, and then they backed off. So my feedback about reading about these guys back during the B2X New York agreement times is that they are a little bit bold, let's say, in their statement. So like when they answered you that they can just crash the price of Bitcoin indefinitely. So probably what BitPico people says has to be taken with a little bit of grain of salt, even their hashing power declaration. So I hope that this will not be completely just cheap talk, but it doesn't look like that. I mean, don't trust verify. Let's be very skeptical about them. But so far, it looks like, I mean, BCash is pretty easy to attack from various point of views. And so let's see. I'm very interested in following with you, Tron, if the logistics turns out feasible.
Right. And the biggest thing I want to know is, will there be like websites where people, because as far as I'm concerned, stress testing BCash means spamming BCash, filling up their blocks, right? So they need, some money to do that, right? Because you have to fill them up, even if you're sending 1 Satoshi per wallet. And this was done to Bitcoin. And I know Bitcoin was spammed because I've been telling the story where I had a cold storage wallet from a while back, and I had no intention of ever opening this cold storage wallet for a decade. But because I got greedy on my 10% BCash sale, I had to open up an old cold storage wallet where nobody knew the public key except for me. There was only one public key because I moved some Bitcoin into it a while back. And all of a sudden, there was 2 additional transactions in this wallet during the spam attacks for 1 Satoshi apiece. So I know they spammed old wallets thinking that, hey, maybe that Bitcoin is lost and maybe no one is ever going to see it. But they sure as hell spammed old wallets. So I would like to talk to these guys to see if they will set up some kind of a public website where people can donate and contribute and, make this a real stress test. So that's one of the things I want to talk to them about.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those. I think they did something like a stress test last year on Bitcoin. So they're going to see how much more they can do the same on Bitcoin Cash. So I'm curious from more of a technical perspective. Whether or not they survive and stuff, that's kind of immaterial to me. I already know that they're centralized and they don't really seem to want to get more decentralized, and they're all about just doing more transactions on the blockchain. Jimmy, so go for it.
I know you know this. I know this. Almost everyone that comes on this show knows this. My audience generally knows this. But when I go to public places and speak, especially places that have been, bribed to hell by the companies of Dash and Zcash and others, they're not this sure, right? Like people really buy into this bullshit that Lightning Network is going to have only 3 nodes belonging to JP Morgan, Citibank, and like Deutsche Bank, right? Like, this is what people have been brainwashed to. So it's not that easy to a vast chunk of the public in certain circles, like the libertarian community, the anarchist community, the people who they can brainwash into conspiracy theories that Blockstream, is an arm of the government.
Yeah, I think we can move on with this story. This is not going to be something that we're going to talk about until it actually happens, and I'm a little bit skeptical that it'll happen, period, just because of what you said about how much it'll cost in order to do.
Right, which is why I want to get these guys on the show and talk about it in detail. I don't really want to talk about...
Just a last very quick comment. The only strict difference between a spamming attack on Bitcoin and a spamming attack on, like the one we sustained, and a spamming attack on BCash, is that the spamming attack on Bitcoin would mostly be aimed at rising the fees. And so you have to spend consistently to keep the fees high. While on BCash, the trick will be to spend for a very limited amount of time, and then the problem is not that you keep spamming and keeping the fees high, but that after you spend, now the blocks, the synchronization for full nodes becomes cumbersome and borderline impossible. So I'm not so sure that this is a symmetric situation because of the bad design of BCash. A spam attack on BCash could be definitely cheaper, but then again, Jimmy's right to be skeptical.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. The transaction fee should not go up relatively high on BCash, and they will learn why that's a bad thing. So hopefully that's the point. All right, I don't really want to talk about this article, mostly because I haven't read it, but I can look at the title, and it says Zcash claims successful first hard fork. When did At which point did the entire crypto ecosystem get the stupid idea that hard forks are a good thing? It seems like that's where we're headed. It's like, who can have, a more centralized, less controversial hard fork to force everyone into new code that one person reviewed? When did this memo go out?
Well, it's cryptocurrency is in a weird place between technology and money. With money, it's better if it doesn't change. With technology, it's better if it does change. So there's always this tension between improvements and staying the same. Bitcoin has erred on the side of staying the same as long as possible, and trying to keep the monetary economic value proposition intact. A lot of these other coins are going in the other direction. They treat it like a website that has to get updated every so often. So, I mean, that's a strategy. I don't necessarily know if that's a very effective one, but that's more or less what Zcash and Ethereum and Monero and every coin pretty much other than Bitcoin does, including Bitcoin Cash, who's already had like 3 hard forks already. So that sort of thing is very common, and that's okay. We want to see how that changes things long term. It's to me like doing hard forks is short term gain, long term loss, because you centralize everything.
Yeah, BCash should hire Garzik to oversee their next hard fork. Maybe that will put us out of our misery with another off by 1 error. Go ahead, Giacomo.
So I would like to reinforce Jimmy's point. So he said money doesn't have to change, technology does, but I will over-specify that money doesn't need to change, and technology may or may not need to change, because base layer technologies like TCP/IP doesn't have to change. It's not money; it's still purely technology, but still it's very, very down in the pyramid of layerization, since it's an infrastructure level open standard and not a product level proprietary solution. It doesn't have to change as well, even if it's not money. And in my understanding, a public global consensus blockchain, even if it was not money, will not need to change a lot. Still being even more, and not in a not backward compatible way. Even since it's even money, that's even worse. And also, when the point of all the cryptocurrency idea is that it lacks a central point of failure, so you cannot bribe or corrupt or blackmail a single organization in order to shut it down or to change it dramatically. Every kind of hard fork that gets deployed, that gets designed and deployed without any kind of friction, without any kind of debate, without any kind of delay. Actually, it happened even before, because the blocks were faster than expected. So when you have a company, in this case, a US-based company, in Zcash, except especially after the tweet I found this morning about the declaration of Matthew Green, with Zcash, that would be the last of my concerns, because it's like a giant honeypot by design. But the fact that you can have an hard fork and not backward compatible change without even any kind of struggle to update the platform, that means that you have no adoption and you have no decentralization by definition. So it's crazy that that it's seen as a good news, and it's crazy that people is still calling Zcash a privacy-focused cryptocurrency.
All right. Thanks for your thoughts, Giacomo. All right. So let's move on to the price analysis portion of the program. And I do.
What about the mempool?
Oh, mempool. I forgot about that. Again, Leah's missing. What's the name of that site again?
JOCHEN. Yeah, there you go. That's the 3-month view. I think you have. I think you want the 24-hour. Yeah. So the
3-month looks interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it always spikes at a certain hour, right? So let's take a look. It looks like there were a lot more transactions, especially the low value transaction or low fee transactions, a lot overnight. Somebody did something at around 9 a.m. A lot of transactions went out, but those were mostly gone until about an hour ago, and it looks like there's a ton of transactions there. So, yeah, I mean, if you want to get it in the next block, you're gonna have to pay around 40 or 50. If you want to get in on the next next couple hours, you could probably get away with 10. If you're willing to wait like a day or two, you could probably do 2 or 3 and you'll be fine. But yeah, this is completely normal.
And those are in Satoshis per byte, not in dollars or other currencies. Those are in Satoshis per byte. And I continue, when I debate people over fees, I mean, it's probably not we could probably do a whole show on this, right? But I try to explain to people how because the fees are calculated in the currency of Bitcoin, the fees calculated in the currency that you've created, if it's a shitcoin, your transaction is calculated in Satoshis per byte. So when the price of Bitcoin goes up 100x, the dollar value of one Satoshi goes up 100x. The transaction fee in dollars goes up 100x based on Satoshis per byte. And a lot of people just like don't get it. They don't get why second layer scaling solutions are absolute mandatory, because your fee is calculated in the currency itself.
Well, yeah, we could probably do a show on that. Anyway, sorry about this, but I'm gonna have to go. Thank you guys, and yeah,
Thanks, Jimmy.
Will talk to you later. Bye.
Okay, and you're not doing workshops in the near future?
Oh, I am. I'm doing one in Denver on July 9th and 10th. I am doing one in San Francisco, July 26th, 27th. I'm doing one in Chicago, August 21st and 22nd. And I am doing one in Prague, October 8th and 9th. Please sign up on programmingblockchain.com.
Very cool. Thank you, Jimmy. And thanks for joining. All right, guys. Right after this show, I will head over to New Haven, Connecticut. It's probably about a 2 to 3 hour drive for me from where I live because of all the New York City traffic. I got to go through the entire New York City. I can try and go around it, but we'll see. And so that's where I'm headed to be there by, what time I got to be there? I got to be there by 6 p.m. All right. So I got to make sure I get there by 6 p.m. So I will be doing that. So check that out. Of course, my workshop list is on my website. It's on tonebase.com. Atlanta is next for me on July 7th, then Boston, and I will figure out Vegas this week, what the hell I'm going to do with that. Before we talk about the price, so my friend Ven Zen sent a very interesting tweet. I do recommend you follow Ven Zen's Twitter account. He does know what he's talking about when it comes to trading. He did mention, like in his tweet, somebody said, hey, you should get on Tone Vase's show to talk about this. And his answer was, well, Tone and I agree on almost everything, so it'll be a boring conversation. I wouldn't mind talking about this. So, and this is interesting, right? So Ven Zen sees the $59,000 to $6,000 value of Bitcoin being defended by exchanges. He feels that a lot of these exchange hacks aren't really hacks. It's more like exchanges get themselves in trouble by, assuming the price of Bitcoin is going to only go up, kind of like the financial sector got itself in trouble by assuming the price of real estate will only go up. And you over leverage and you assume that it can't go down. And then when it does go down, your exchange becomes insolvent. Now, fortunately for the world of Bitcoin, you can claim that you got hacked, and that's why you don't have to pay out that Bitcoin. Now, while the latter part of that statement is certainly possible, I don't trust any of these exchanges, which is why I never keep my money on exchanges. So it is possible for an exchange to cry hack when in reality, they didn't have that Bitcoin to be hacked. They faked it because they couldn't pay out the people that because they assumed the price would only go up. But conceptually, this doesn't make too much sense to me, right? So first of all, if you're running an honest exchange, this should not be a problem for you. That's one. Second, a lot of the people are over leveraged buyers. So if you have really shitty mechanisms of liquidating your people, or if you have some whale trader and you are afraid to lose his business and you kind of guarantee his position until his position goes to such shit where your guarantee cannot meet the person that was short on the opposite side. I still think the majority of people are just straight up long and they're just going to lose their money. So I'm not in full agreement here. Now, I do believe that the $6,000 area is clearly being defended, but I believe that it's going to break. He thinks that there'll be a midsummer rally coming up. I also think there will be a midsummer rally, but I still see the price of Bitcoin falling down to $5,000 sometime in early July before rebounding for maybe as high as 7, maybe even as high as 8, maybe even as high as, like the top of this triangle is only at 6.5, right? Can we rebound all the way into the death cross between the 30-week and the 50-week, which will sit in the vicinity of 8,500? Can we get to 8,500 on the bounce? We absolutely could. And that would mean that the bear market is going to get dragged out for probably longer, but it does have potential not to get rejected at the death cross and continue to go to new all-time highs. Anything is possible. I have not yet seen enough momentum to push us back to 8,000. I'm still a believer that, the daily chart has not been all that useful. Look, we're defending these levels. I think we're going to fall below the $6,000 level sometime later this week, maybe going into the weekend. And then sometime next week or the week after, we're going to dip hard. Because here's the thing. Even if Van Zen is right, that exchanges are trying to defend the $6,000 level at all costs because they may not be liquid enough to pay out the shorts. Now, again, very debatable. I think that even if he's right, all hell is going to break loose once they lose that level of support, right? So once we drop to 5,500, 56, maybe even 5,700, right? The panic is going to set in. And if one of these exchanges screams, I got hacked, that's going to cause even more panic in the system, right? Like screaming you got hacked by faking a hack as an exchange in order to save yourself money, will keep you out of prison, will keep you from being Mark Karpeles, but it sure as hell ain't going to keep the price of Bitcoin going up, right? It doesn't work that way, right? Like Mt. Gox shut down when the price of Bitcoin was like 400 or 500, and a few weeks earlier it was 1,000. That sure as hell didn't stop the price of Bitcoin from going to 150. It probably assisted in that because confidence in the ecosystem was lost. So I still foresee a $5,000 low sometime next month. If my view on that changes, I'll let you know. This is the 12-hour chart. The 12-hour chart did get rejected from this area. Is it possible we're going to go back up to 6,300 and then break out? Well, it's possible, but your trade right now, traders should be in a short trade. You have a red 2 below a red 1 on a 12-hour. The 3 went even lower. It has since rebounded. Your stop loss is around the red line, which is at 62.75. And if you break above the red line, then it has very good potential to go all the way up to 6,800. Trading is not easy. That's why very few are successful. So here's what happened about 3 hours ago. We were breaking down below 6,000. What was the low on that? The low on that was 59.85. And people continue to try and defend $6,000. I think eventually they will no longer be able to defend it. You did have your 9. It was a perfected 9, but then the candle did not close as a 9 using the 4-hour chart. I'm still looking for a 1 to 4 candle bounce here, and probably later tonight or going into tomorrow, I am expecting, sub $6,000 prices. I remain a full-blown bear. Here's the 1 hour chart. The 1 hour chart is kind of flat, not really giving you anything. This is the 30-minute chart. Again, you had this huge 7 candle on a 30-minute chart giving you a hammer. You then went above the hammer. You eventually got your 9, which closed as a 1. And it's not really telling you much. This is big positive volume. Don't confuse this red spike with a red volume spike. This is a green volume spike because the majority of the action brought the price back up, which is not easy to do when momentum is to the downside. So there was huge defense of the $6,000 area. How many times can they defend it? Nobody knows. But eventually, instead of defending it, they will sell. All of these defenses of 6,000, that means someone is buying Bitcoin. And when that person no longer has any more Bitcoin to defend the price, or that person has given up at defending the price, what they're going to do is they are going to sell, and they're going to drive this price down to 5,000 and probably in a hurry. The gold continues to drop. I am now completely off the bullish bandwagon on gold, assuming I ever was on one. I kept waiting for the 1380 line to break. It never did. And the moment we take out this low, the moment we go below 1240, gold becomes in serious trouble. I will say I had the, so gold has been making, well, it's in a bit of a triangle right now, right? So it has been making higher lows consistently, and lately it has been making higher highs since early 2017. And if that pattern breaks, I can certainly see the 2015 low be taken out. I can easily see that. Like, I'm not on the gold bullish bandwagon. This is the monthly chart. The monthly chart is on a 2 of 9, and if a monthly gets a 9, I mean, it'll probably stay above this green line, but it'll come close. The S&P apparently was doing really well earlier today, and look, it got perfectly rejected by the def cross. It's now going down, and so we'll see what happens there. That's pretty much it for me, Giacomo. Unless you have final thoughts, check us out on the Tone Vase audio podcast. And if you're near New Haven, Connecticut, please come and watch me do trading Bitcoin live and do a bunch of QA around 6:30 p.m. tonight.
Nothing you by my side. Thank you, and see you tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. Actually, no, you won't
not
see
yet.
tomorrow. Tomorrow, there will not be a Bitcoin morning brief. There will be a different show in the evening, bringing in yet another show because I don't have enough podcast names. We're going to do the Bitcoin law review tomorrow with a couple of lawyers from the 6-hour live stream that we did on the SEC stuff. So we're going to maybe do that show once a week. We will do that, and I got to work with CoinDaddy on the world premiere of Tone Vase Part 3. We're gonna do that tomorrow early afternoon. I got a interview conflict now. We will work on that. We will bring you the latest news on that. It's really hard to schedule all of these podcasts. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Our best to Leah, who couldn't make it today, and I will see all of you tomorrow. Giacomo, you'll see everybody on Friday.
Okay. See you
Bye,
Friday.
guys.
Bye.